Hey everybody, welcome to another Signal 65 Video Insight. I'm Ryan Shrout, President at Signal 65. And today I am joined by Cory McElroy, who is the VP of Commercial Product Management at HP. Cory, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be here.
Maybe let's first start out the conversation. I'd like to understand for the viewers what exactly the role that you have is. What does a VP of Commercial Product Management do at HP?
Yeah, thanks. So it's really the team and I are responsible for defining our worldwide portfolio for the commercial PC business at HP. And so that's really any kind of PC that is used or deployed for work, whether it's SMB, large corporate enterprise customers, also the education portfolio. So it spans notebooks, desktops, then clients. Again, I mentioned education. So pretty broad set of customers and worldwide set of geographies that we support. So we define the products and work closely with engineering and other support teams to bring their products to market.
Very cool. So maybe first thing I want to touch on is the differences between what we would generally think of as a commercial PC and a consumer PC, right? What are the kind of the expectations and how are they a little bit different when you're designing a commercial device versus a consumer device? And are there, maybe specific work trends, hybrid work, other things that you've seen over the last several years that have been impacting those product roadmap decisions?
Yeah, so absolutely. In the way that we work on it, and this is really across all product management teams at HP, is we really just focus on the users. We focus on what are the jobs to be done, what are the workflows, and that helps us. And we have a segmentation model that helps us then start to talk in kind of a common language as we work across teams that support those development efforts. And so for us, when we think about designing products for work, it's really about the personas, the segmentation, the user. What are they doing, and are they highly mobile, or are they a stationary user in the office? What's their environment, what's their ecosystem of products that they're working with, and then we, to your question, then in contrast, for consumer or gaming segmentation, the workloads are going to be very different, and the jobs to be done different, which drives different requirements. And so some of the key differences for us, what we focus on for work, is we have some customers that need smart card readers for authentication, maybe, and as not a requirement for a consumer class PC. Our warranty offerings, our operating system offerings, but also a lot of the key features that we have, some integrated privacy screens, things like that. Very important for sensitive information that might get done at work, but not as important for a consumer class product. And so those are some of the key differences. And again, it comes back to the user and the jobs to be done. And then you're asking about some trends and kind of how have we seen things change over the past few years. And I think it's easy for us to reflect on just even kind of what change in work styles got brought in by the pandemic. And what we saw was a lot of increase in video collaboration and multitasking while people were stationary. And so it really drove up a workload on the PC as you're on a Zoom call or on a Teams call, and then you have multiple files open and you're trying to do a lot of work. Really saw users taxing kind of the performance headroom on the systems that we were designing and delivering. And so that's really helped inform how we think about, even if you're a highly mobile person, your workloads have changed because of some of those habits that we started developing, even a few years ago.
It's really interesting, just kind of how dramatic of an impact that era, if you will, that couple of years has had on how we work, how we play, how those devices get merged, how you start to combine some of those things.
That's right.
On the paper that we published a paper on signal65.com where we looked at the EliteBook 1040G11 in a couple
Mhm.
of different scenarios and looking at some of the key technologies. And one of the pieces of that paper was really diving into how it can be easy to get lost in specifications. Lots of laptops have the same processor, lots of laptops have the same amount of memory or amount of storage, but it's really not what is driving most of the kind of experience differentiation in the commercial laptop market. So I'm curious, when you go develop technologies like SmartSense, how you think about that kind of impact of other areas like thermals and fan noise and everything else that goes into differentiating the design.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really does come back again to who's the user, what's the environment, what are they doing, and it's always easy to kind of relate for personal use cases. And so for me personally, a good example of how that plays out is we could be collaborating as we are now. I could be working on a file which By the way, a lot of files are a lot larger because of Gen AI and image generation. We have hundreds of megabytes, even gigabyte files now we're passing around. Well, that creates a certain requirement. But then I go home and maybe I'm doing some email or light work from bed, and I don't want my system to be this high performant. Maybe I want the performance, but I don't want the things that come with it. So you mentioned fan noise and thermals and some of that. I don't need that for light work.
Mhm.
And so I need to be able to kind of adjust to those different environments. And so those are the types of things we take into consideration really for the holistic user experience is really being able to adapt to the breadth of where and how we're using our products throughout the day and throughout the various environments that we work.
I think it's one of the really interesting things that HP has been bringing to the commercial space is that kind of adaptability to what are you doing at any given point in time, right? Not even like what is your primary focus on the device, but just even throughout your workday. You know, HP SmartSense is kind of the technology, the overlying umbrella technology and brand that you associate with some of those technologies. But it's a combination of hardware and software, right?
That's right.
And sensors and other pieces of technology that can adapt the machine based on that. Like, what are some of the key innovations that you've seen in SmartSense and this most recent iteration that we looked at on the G11?
That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. And so Smart Sense is something we did introduce first starting in 2023, and then we've continued to build on it, as you mentioned, and we have an exciting roadmap ahead. And really, it is exactly as you referred to. It's a combination of bringing together all the various aspects that we have across the total system and working closely with partners to say, how can we enable the system to adapt to where it's being used, how it's being used, the applications it's being used, and therefore kind of where and how do I want to tune that experience. And so if we kind of break it down into some of the core parts of it, there's a combination of uh, core hardware and the thermal management and the fan innovation we're driving with turbo fans and getting much more efficient airflow through the heat sinks and through the fan design, and then working closely with partners on how do we tune the algorithms and the fan curves to say under certain workloads, I want it to be optimized for kind of cool and quiet and still performant. But then other workloads, if I want to go into performance mode, then I'm maybe a little less sensitive to fan noise or the thermals, but I really need some of that, kind of raw capability. And so the combination of those algorithms with the thermal hardware enablement that we've done, and then on top of that, we additionally have the sensors that enable the device to be a lot more contextually aware of how it's being used to then further tweak the experience. And so this is where we can bring in sensors that say, is it on your lap? Is it in a bag? Are you using it on some soft surface? That becomes really important because it enables us to tweak things like skin temperature by up to 9 degrees Fahrenheit based on that because of the sensor enablement that happens in the device. And so all these things come together to really tune and tailor that experience based on the user and the environment.
Now, I know a lot of these systems are being used for kind of the early entry into like AI PC workloads, but I actually want to ask about, how does SmartSense incorporate elements of AI in its design itself, right? How is HP utilizing AI to develop SmartSense? Is SmartSense utilizing AI algorithms in some way to help improve those user experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And the um, data that I mentioned, the sensor that I mentioned, we call that motion AI, and that motion AI is embedding and leveraging on-device and in-device AI. And this is something we've been doing again, multi-generation, and so we're building on it. It's becoming more intelligent. We continue to train and tune it to say, based on history, what is that environment? What is that condition? And how do I tune it? And so I mentioned the example of I'm using it on my lap, where I put the system in my bag and it helps me kind of automatically get the system into and out of certain states so that it's ready to go, but then it's also starting to cool down so that I don't deal with an overheated bag or a system that gets too hot that many people have dealt with. And so this AI is happening, and in this case, and it's not, that doesn't require user interaction, right? The system is able to intelligently manage that on behalf of the user. Then as it relates to kind of more generative AI and where we're going and some of the more increasing demands we're putting on the system as we're asking it to create content or interacting it with in new ways because of AI, SmartSense effectively just enables a higher level of performance without a lot of the trade-offs that would typically come with cranking up the performance. And so we are seeing AI workloads really drive up the demands on systems. And so we see something like SmartSense as a no regrets way to help manage that without, again, making the systems heavier, bulkier, louder, or with far more expensive thermal cooling solutions.
I really love the bag detection technology. It was one of those interesting ones that when I was reading about it, it was being described to me by your team. I was like, wow, that makes a ton of sense. Your a laptop can detect when it's in a backpack or in a briefcase. And then as you start to remove it from that, it can kind of automatically start to come out of a hibernate sleep state so that when you open it up, it's a little bit faster. And that kind of innovation it's super useful, but it's not something that shows up on a spec sheet to the point we were kind of making before. Yeah.
Well, maybe one thing I would just highlight, it's part of the power of us and the partnership with Signal 65 is a lot of the work that we're doing is kind of difficult to communicate because it's not a traditional benchmark. It's not just a linear way of thinking about things that shows up as, gigahertz, megahertz type of metric that,
Yeah.
we've traditionally used. And so it's a lot more contextual. It's a lot more specific to conditions that they resonate when you have the opportunity to communicate them. So I appreciate the work that you and the team
Of
have done
course.
to help bring to life some of the value of this work in ways that has traditionally been a little bit harder to communicate in standard deliverables.
Yeah, it's been great. So how does you worked with Intel on some of the implementation of this. I'm curious when you work with a silicon provider like Intel, how does that help make this process possible? What is the implementation like? Is this something that requires kind of deep collaboration between the two organizations to really get right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, Intel's been a great partner on this journey and the smart sense and a great partner across many journeys, but specifically on smart sense, they've been one of the lead partners with us leveraging and partner with them on their EPO, so their energy performance optimizer capability. And so we get the greatest minds of both companies and really kind of treat it as a single company. We engage starting very early on in the design process because it's not just a individual component or technology, but it's the integration of all the ones that we talked about. And so at a system level, that means that we do have to start the engagement at the very front end when we're designing for the program. And in this case, the EliteBook 1040 G11 to say, how do we go tune every bit of the system, including getting as much out of the EPO capability from Intel on top of the other thermal innovations and motion AI and other things that HP engineering brings. And so it's a very, very tight partnership. It's one that starts even well before a lot of the visual design elements of the program comes to light.
Makes sense. All right, I've got one more for you because I know this is something that HP has been really focused on, and I want to ask about the kind of materials and design side of commercial devices like the G11, and if there's anything kind of unique about the materials, recycled materials, kind of design elements that come into this. What's something that kind of stands out to you there?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer because there's a lot of things that I'm proud of, right? The great part about working at a company that got started by some engineers in a garage is everyone's always just really trying to come up with the most creative solution to complex problems. And so, in the case of SmartSense, we gave them a challenging problem of make it 40% more performant and also 40% cooler and quieter, and they rose to the challenge. And then now, as we think about broader system design, is how can we take some of these materials that are not good to have in the environment? How can we repurpose them and bring them in a responsible way into the products that we deliver? And so it's been a fun journey where we were the first ones to start with ocean-bound plastics that were integrated into the speaker enclosures, and then we started with recycled DVDs that end up in keyboard keycaps. And so we've continued this going, and then now it's let's recycle fishing nets, let's recycle used cooking oil and integrate those things all into the material enclosures of the product. And so maybe as excited as I am about the experiences that we deliver, it's the responsible approach that we take to really how we bring our products to market.
That's amazing. It's a very worthwhile endeavor to
Absolutely.
take on. Appreciate it. Well, Corey, look, I really appreciate you joining me here to kind of talk about this report and some of the technologies that the HP commercial division has been building. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate the partnership and collaboration and looking forward to more in the future.
Yep. And thank you to the viewers. You can check out this report, find it at signal65.com, and we'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks.